Shalom, blessings. My name is Liz McGee. Welcome back to my channel, Prophecy for the Last Hour. I have a whole great another teaching today. I'm sticking with some very esoteric understandings, so which to me is all great meat for the saints, the elect of the last days. So last week was talking about two creations, not necessarily two creation stories, but we have narratives that come down to us in the writings, and there are different streams, different groups that have kept different groups of writings together. So you have this whole body called the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay, which turns out is a much more priestly group of writings. They include Jubilees and Enoch. I touched on this. I don't want to give it too much, but what you can find when you dig deep enough to harmonize everything is that you have some writings that are very priestly, which is the priests are extremely important to the whole storyline, right? And Yeshua being our high priest, now Melchizedek priesthood. Okay, so that's a big piece of the puzzle. But another area that is really, I touched on this last week. I didn't have a very good diagram or a very good visual. I'm trying to do a little bit better. But I have this, and I want to talk about this. This is actually a very Kabbalistic concept that has taken me years to study and to figure out exactly what the prophets, the sages, have been saying. What is going on in this literature? In other words, I'm really getting into the mind of these prophets, the brains, where they are. And my point today is to demonstrate they are not in a literal, earthly, strictly only box. These guys are all over the cube of space. All right, now let me just throw that out there. That's my teaser. Stick with me. We'll get through it. All right. Now, I want to start with reading a quote. This is from the Zohar, and it's a quote from Simon ben Yochai. Now, he is technically the author of the Zohar. And let me just say, when you reach this level of readings and understandings, it's very coded and it's very symbolic. So words have many levels of meaning, many accurate symbolic representations and meanings, what they're painting, what picture the word is painting, what actual reality. All right. So Simon ben Yochai, according to tradition, and I believe this more and more now, these are really the teachings of Yeshua and his disciples as he came and he restored the keys to the kingdom. That was part of what he did. He gave people back the keys that would unencrypt these very coded texts, all right? So this is a very cagey thing. This is known. This is so interesting, all the literature. This is known by many, many deep Torah scholars, Torah Kabbalists of the house of Judah. And this is part of the history. People like Abraham Abalafe and some of these people. There's some levels that these sages have gotten to of understanding and seeing the big picture. So I believe that this tradition concept could be really true, that these are the writings, because I have now studied deeply, and I'm getting more into the Dead Sea Scrolls and into the Zoharic mystical literature of the House of Israel, and there's no difference in theology. And it's airtight. This is what's so interesting. It's priestly. There's a little bit, and last week, if you listened to it, I did talk about there's two kind of things going on. You have the Torah of the priest, kind of, and the Torah of the king. See, we have two Moshiachs in incarnation. You have Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David that come at different times in history and do a different kind of work, part of the collective whole, because it's always unity, it's always aha. So how do you explain these are archetypes? King David, and Joseph would be the archetype, or Moshiach ben Joseph, that's why it's called that. All right, so these are important things to understand. So I do believe that that's what's prophesied to happen, that the mystical writings, Kabbalah, will prove the Torah and will prove to the world that Torah is true on all of its levels. When it's finally understood and unpacked and articulated, it will give Yahweh great glory, because it is the whole plan. And let me read you this quote, and I'm not going to stop until I get to the bottom of it. Let's see if I can hold true to my words. Woe unto the man, says Simon ben Yochai, he is a rabbi, who asserts that this Torah intends to relate only commonplace commonplace things, and secular narratives. If this were so, then in the present times, likewise, a Torah might be written with more attractive narratives. In truth, however, the matter is this: the upper world and the lower world are established upon one and the same principle. In the lower world is Israel, the souls of all Israel, okay? In the upper world are the angels. So in the lower world, you have the souls of Israel. In the upper world are the angels. When the angels wish to descend to the lower world, they have to don earthly garments. If this be true of the angels, how much more so of the Torah, for whose sake, indeed, that Israel and the angels were alike created and exist. That's what the Torah says. The world would simply not have endured to look upon it. Now, the narratives of the Torah are its garments. He who thinks that these garments are the Torah itself, the whole thing, all right, deserves to perish and have no share in the world to come. Pretty harsh. Woe unto the fools who look no further when they see an elegant robe. More valuable than the garment is the body which carries it. Okay. You have the body which carries the garment. And more valuable even than that is the soul that's inside the body, which is clothed in the garment. Got to keep this progression in your mind, which animates the body. Fools see only the garment of the Torah. The more intelligent see the body. The wise see the soul, its proper being. And in the Messianic time, the upper soul of Torah will stand revealed. Okay, now that's really, there's so much meat in this, I just can't even, I mean, oh my gosh. But the one I'm going to end with, go into this where it says, in the Messianic time, which is what we're coming to, the millennial reign, right, where the king will rule on the earth in the lower realms. All of heaven and earth will be subject to the one king, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. And in that time, the upper soul of Torah will stand revealed. So we have to get this is all, a lot of this language is geography. We have to know where we are in Yahweh's multi-layered heavens and earth. Because I'm telling you, it's ironclad, it's airtight. The way these sages and Torah prophets have classified this information so logically, so neatly, that if you have the keys, it's so easy just to go in and out and up and down the realms and stick with the prophets and know where they are and what they're saying. But, this is the point if you don't have the keys. So, all right. So again, keep this in mind. The Messianic time, the upper soul of Torah will be revealed. Now, I'll tell you another thing. We have what we call today the written Torah, and it's the revealed. It is the Torah for the profane. Everybody can read it, and it is full of narratives. And a lot of people, this is the point, think that's all there is to it. But to any true elect sage teacher should know that the different levels is the different garments. There's different garments, always deeper and deeper and deeper. All right. Yahweh clothes himself in light. He clothes himself in many, many things as he comes down, so to speak, and relates to us. So there's an upper soul. You don't see it. This is what Paul is saying. There's an inner man. There's a soul life going on. There is what animates the body. It's called the nephesh soul. And then there's other levels of soul life. But there also is, and that is hierarchical in and of itself. And so then we get down to the wise see the soul. The intelligent see the body. And this is where a difference. See, he's got, the profane, the intelligent, and the wise. There's a category of people always in your text, you'll run over it all called the wise. These are people who get it on the deep spiritual level. The intelligent, again, these are a lot of the occultists out there today. These are a lot of the elitists. These are a lot of the people who understand that there's a lot deeper understanding that is true that our ancients had and people had, but they don't necessarily want to pass it on to you because you're just, it's easier to control people if you could have classes of people's sheeples and then these elitists. But we're coming into the elect, the season elect, and they're going to tip the apple cart. We are going to, and this is what I want to get to, how it says the earth got tilted on its axis and kind of got upside down, or it got turned on its side. See, they're very intentional in what they're saying in the mind picture. Let me quickly make 2 points that you could maybe track with the thread here to make my point. When it talks here about fools only see the garment of the Torah, and then it says more valuable than the garment is the body. There is a story, and I think it's in the Tanakh. I don't have the citation right now, but it's also in the pseudographics. I've read it, where when they were engaged in the wars with Babylon and the nation, and at one point I can't remember, but there was a guy. He's by name and everything. He captured a robe when they captured the city, and they're not supposed to take any booty. And there's a deep theological reason. I can't go into that, but there's so much into why you don't take the booty of these quote unquote other nations. All right. But the point is he took one of these robes, these Babylonian robes that was absolutely beautiful. And it says it's full of jewels and it's full of, just great material and sewn and such expertise in things. And he's thinking to himself, well, this will probably keep me and my family, for generation. We'll keep this in the house. Well, he got found out. I don't know, somehow the prophet of God found out. I can't remember where this story is. If it's Moses confronts one of the prophets, whoever. Anyways, he's killed. I mean, the punishment for taking that garment and kind of elevating its status and thinking this is your meal ticket and this is, and it's hidden. This is sort of why the penalty was death, because when people elevate the things of this worldly plane above the spiritual understanding, like they forsake their own soul. How does it go? Better to gain the whole world, but not lose your soul. You don't want to gain the whole world and lose your soul in the process. So that's an archetypal image. That's what it's telling you. Babylon, for all its bells and whistles, do not put your trust in Babylon. All right. So that's one way in which the consistency of the archetype is following through. All right. And the more intelligent, so you have here the profane that can just read the garment of the Torah, the narratives, it's very fundamentalist meanings. Then you have the more intelligent who see the body. Okay, the body does refer in a lot of ways to this concept, which is a mystical terminology. Actually, you could just Google it. It has a definition called Zer Anpin, which is specifically talks about on your Sefiroth chart, which is really this is a flat two-dimensional, I think, of what I'm talking about here. This is four-dimensional. This thing, when you put this together, and I'll explain in a second, it gives you a four-sided cube. It gives you the beginning of space, okay? This does not have any space. It's flat, okay? These are important concepts you always have to have understanding about, because that's what the prophets do. That's what they reference. Okay, so when you get the intelligent, a lot of times, like I said, this is a world of, in parts, you have parts, which the first level, which is a literal, then you go into this hint, this remez, which is where, again, the beginning of occultists, the beginning of people who see deeper and understand higher levels of consciousness in which to actually manipulate, to do things, whether you're a Sadiq, getting prayer answered, or whether you're a magician, using the power illegally, lawlessly for your own benefit. I mean, really and truly. So let's try to stay on track here. All right. Now, this is what threw me, because I knew that they were doing this, putting places, dimensions in literal, logical places with names. I just didn't quite get it. Now I do. Okay. The Zer Anpin is the lower seventh Sefirot, and what it is it literally is, this is why the ancients called it, it's the atom came in, it's atom, it's the whole part of the universe in the sense that we can, for all intents and purposes, we interact with. Our Heavenly Mother, Heavenly Father, these were bony, they're outside. There's different levels to this thing. So for the ancients understood that Zer Anpin is the working universe, and all of its laws and physics and in all of it affects us. All right. One word they had for it is mazal. Mazal would be the influences that are in the heavenlies okay, that are above, that do influence. They influence our personality. They influence our bodily organs. They influence our mental. There's cycles to this thing, all right? So when you take, so let me also, because this is very important for Christians, so I don't lose you, because the early Christians, we know, were Jews, okay? There was nothing called a Christian back then in the way we use it today, a separate entity with its own trajectory and destiny and body of understanding, divorced from its root system, okay? They came very lot out of the root system. Yeshua totally came out of that plan of righteousness of Enoch, actually goes all the way back, through Abraham, Isaac, through Zadok, through, all the way through. They can trace. But when you take, okay, so I said this is a flat, you just look at the symbols on it, okay? I've said this many times, flat depiction of the same information that's on here, all right? But this, when you open this up and lay this out, it's a cross. See, they didn't make that up. That archetype is there in a certain sense, okay? Now let's go back to the original understanding our prophets and Torah sages and early apostles had about this cross, okay? Because when you take this cross and you superimpose it, let's say, on the flat, it literally does, let me make sure, it lines up, oopsie, exactly where everything is supposed to be. So in other words, you can see, this is Hesed, the south. This is Gevera, the north. It fits. It goes right over these two Sephirothic circles. So you'd have Keter at the top, which is the top. You have Tiferet, which is here, I'll show you, is in the east. Right there in the middle. See, this is there, very in the middle of this thing. And that's Yod He Vav He right there. That's the throne room. I mean, there's so much. They're not arbitrary. Then you have Malkut, you have the west, you have physicality. We're down here below, all right? We're in physicality, we're in the west. All right, so that's what I'm going to unpack a little bit of. Now, if you think that that this is not in our, let's just take our Tanakh, our Old Testament. Let me share something really quick. This is Isaiah 24, okay? These are two verses, Isaiah 24, 14, and 15. Now, let's just read it totally out of context, but I'll give you the context in a minute. It says, they raise their voices, they shout for joy. They cry out from the west concerning the majesty of the Lord. Therefore, 15, glorify the Lord in the east, the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, in the coastlands of the sea. Okay, now you wouldn't believe how much geography from a prophet's point of view is in this, all right? So what I wanted to say, and also remember last week I talked about tautology. This is this is called parallelism. This is called dualism. This principle of two is all over the text on many levels in so many theological applications. I mean, just look at the two houses of Israel. Duality, parallelism, two things. In literature, when you write and it's called tautology, it's called parallelism, you say it one way and then you immediately say it again, really the way you want to say it. So they raise their voices, they shout for joy. They cry from the west concerning the majesty of Adonai. Now, the other thing I have to say that's very important in the Hebrew in this is you have to understand the word Lord is the word Yod He Vav He at a certain level, but at a certain point it becomes the Lord Adonai. And it all has to do with where you are on the Sephirothic chart. If you're in the middle, if you're in Tiferet here, he is Yod He Vav He. He is the king, and he is over all of it. If you're talking about Adonai, the name of the Lord, Adonai, that's in Malkut. That's down here in his manifestation here. See there? And then the God of Israel, the word God is Elohim. So you have two words, and I can't get it all, but it's so specific which title of Yahweh they give in the verse and where they are geographically. So I just want to say, therefore glorify the Lord in the east, and then they cry out from the west. So those are just some things, but I wanted to show you that it is in the literature. And then from the ends of the earth, we hear songs. So this is Isaiah 24. Okay, this is a whole chapter that is so highly encrypted, it cracks me up. Let me just go back to it. Behold, the earth, the Lord lays the earth waste, devastates it, distorts the surface, and scatters its inhabitants. That is sort of what happens in day one, you know, so it becomes tahu bahu. I have some videos touching on that. I can't go into that. But really, when it was laid waste, what happened is the earth tilted, as I say, and it got out of Hoyle, and now all of a sudden, instead of up being up, north became up. And that's highly coded, and I will start to tell you now why that's so important, and that's what had to be righted. So we have to be turned, so to speak, right side back up. Oh my gosh. This is above. I mean, because when you're in your Bible, all mystical texts will tell you there are 6 directions, 7, really, but you have north, south, east, and west. All right, so what you really have to understand in here, it's not always talking about on a flat plane. Because like I said, this cross, this is what we're told biblically in some, when the Israel, the 12 tribes, is camping around the tabernacle, the center, and the Levites are in the center. So you in east, so you would have this below on the earth. Okay, so they're flat, they're camped flatly on the land, and that's what it would look like. It would look like a cross aerially, okay? But it really is, at that point, it's really only a 2-dimensional. You're just showing it's on the surface. Those souls, because remember, he separated the waters, the upper world from the lower world. You have the upper world. I just read this in this. The lower world is Israel, and the upper world are the angels. So that he separated these, and really and truly, it's these programs. The best way is these like computer programs that run. Some of them run, you know, we're below the angels now. We were made originally above it, but when this thing got tipped on its side, for all intents and purposes, we lost our status above. So they really are, no matter how you turn this thing, which is another interesting thing, you're never lost. Okay, you can always kind of figure out. Because as we know, we have to begin to wrap it. This is a multi-dimensional world that we are existing in. This is, I guess, the first line of getting out of the boat, getting your eyes wide open, getting wisdom insight. You have to understand. Our texts are telling us about dimensions that are real and that our prophets totally dwelt in, lived. Yeshua lived in these. And then when I say mentally, he could ascend, he could, you know, bring heaven to earth in the sense that he could live in those places. Most people never get, you know, we're profane. We just live in the flat plane. You know, we're flatliners, so to speak. All right, so let me go back to this. There's 6 the different directions. You have above and below. You have a top and you have a bottom. If you're going to have any kind of dimensional thing, it's right here. I have above and then I have below. And they're opposite, all right? So my above is always in the top. My below is always in the bottom. These things are very logical. They never break like kind of the logical topology or archetype that we see in nature and in everything, all right? Now you have north, south, east, and west. So here's east, here's south. Let me see, I got all, here is north, and here is west. And this is what really kind of threw me for so long until I had the epiphany. I understood, oh, no wonder it doesn't always work out because we're tilted. Earth is tilted. Okay, now I was going to give this other example in the sense of this understanding. I'm not making this up because many people who are, if you're well read, you read a lot of the studiographies, and this is actually kind of a more profane. I think this is a more, well, no, I think it is in the Zohar. I mean, it's a kind of understanding. Another way they say how, and I've told you all this, it's male and female. This whole, the way they slice and dice, and cause so if you're looking at it upright, you got a left side and a right side, and you got a middle. That's one way. You can look at it in a flat dimensional this way. You can make it into a cubic space. They're all true, and they're all being used to denote certain things. But when it says that the woman, when the heavens and the earth kind of got the clash, that got flipped around, the woman came on top, and the man was on the bottom, and that's not correct. The woman is on the bottom, and the male is supposed to be on top. But see, we in our profanity, I mean, one of our phrases to go sexual, and it's not, okay? And I have a couple of, it's really talking about the heavens and the earth and proper alignment and harmony. And when it says the male was made first, and then the female, and then what happened to make the female kind of come out on top. Remember, Satan says he wanted to get above the throne of Elohim and place his kind of kingdom on the sides of the north, on the north. See, that's very intentional. I hope you're sticking with it, because I'm going to show. So again, we have above, we have below, we have 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. Now, on one level, you can always put the map, north, south, east, on a flat surface, and sometimes the north does denote geographically on the earth, all right? So, well, on so many levels. So you have Babylon is in the east. Babylon is an earlier, also in time, see, because an earlier civilization. In the west is always referred, the sun sets in the west. It also indicates progression of time. So they have so many ways that are coded. So that's why it says at the end in the west. Well, the west would kind of, it indicates the end of a season of time, the end of the 6,000 years, where we go into something at a different millennium. Yes, you would say that at the I believe it says that Adonai will come from the west at the end of time. So there are all these coded ways in which they are keeping this thing straight for you. So let's just go over this now, where some of them fit. So you have Keter, you have above. And this is one of the things that's very much in the text, especially in the beginning, Genesis, establishing. And this is where, you know, again, male and female, our heavenly mother, our heavenly father, Chokmah and Bina and Keter, this concept that is outside and greater, really, and dimensionally. And it's, see, that's why this is the mind of the place of the mind. It's a higher consciousness. It is outside of our bodies, of the created part of this universe. Okay, there is a place beyond creation. Okay, creation indicates a start, a beginning. We begin to create. All right, so yes, what did Yahweh, what did Keter, Chokmah, and Bina, this concept of create? And they created what is called, like I said, Zer and Pin, which is this concept of a kind of the working universe and everything you need for all time, all peoples, all places, every contingency you could ever need if you were Yahweh in your plan of salvation for your sons. So you have then the east is Keter. If you're looking at this correctly with above here, this is above, the east is here. If you open it, east represents, and below is below the earth. Those are places. East is really representing what's called Tiferet, Yad-Heh, Vav-Heh, center, the sun, the center of the whole heavens. All right. Yahweh is associated with the east. It's his throne. Like when Ezekiel and in Enoch, where these guys went, they really do operate from a level of the throne room of Elohim, which is in the east, but it is, I guess when you have it, how do I say this? Dimensionally, it's in the middle, all right? And that's why, you know, it is the hub, the center, and then all these spokes, all these Sefiroth, all these come off of it. Below, then you have, okay, you have the north, you have the west, as I keep saying, and you have the south, all right? Now, the south is always referred to as Yesed. The north is always referred to as the Sefiroth of Gevera. And the two of them have huge bodies of theological understanding. But Gevera is a place Because if you read Isaiah very carefully, and it says that, Yahweh, and I hate to, it says he did create evil. It says he did, it does say that, and it is the word, and you can't run from that theology. You have to stick with it and understand. Yes, he created a space. See, the role of Gevurah, when you understand that these are dimensions, and when a lot of times it's used as the side of the north. This Sefirot of Gevurah is right below the Sefirot of Bina, which is really the Heavenly Mother, which is Elohim. What I was going to say is you have Elohim as the name of God, and it's on the left side. You have Chokmah, which is also, he says, with wisdom, he founded the whole earth. That's on the right side. That represents the south. You have Tiferet, which is in the east, which is always referred to as the throne, the center of Yahweh in his creation. And then you have the west, which is always referred to as Malkuth, which is always referred to as the feet. So if you put it on a body, you kind of have Hesed and Gevurah, kind of like the shoulders. So in other words, you have Keter, Chokmah, Bina is kind of the head. Again, if you were to take a body and lay it flat, you would have the head, the Keter, Chokmah, Bina. You would have the two shoulders, Hesed and Gevurah, which is a right side and a left side, which are whole system. And then you have, again, the middle pillar. You have this kind of a spine going down. And Vav, Yod He Vav He, Vav is the sixth Sefirot that makes up, quote unquote, the sun, S-O-N. And in parabolic language, he's archetypally referred to as the sun, S-U-N, the center of the heavens. Everything rubs, okay, where they're going. So anyways, then you have, and each one is associated with the name of Elohim. So like I said, in the east, we have the throne, which is at the top of the four worlds, so to speak, in this place geographically. It really is. I can't, it works out here and it works out here. And I think that you have the throne, and then you have Malkuth, like I said, in the west, the feet. So in other words, you have a head, shoulders, you have the torso where the heart is, and the vital organs really are all right there, which is, again, all Zerampin, all the sun, all the Vav. And then you have the Hay, the Malkuth, the feet, the final physicality, which leads me to the point of saying what happened was in the fall, and this is sort of very coded language, Adam and Eve, kind of engaging with a left-sided. So in other words, she gave herself up for seed planting to the north, okay, and to this place, because Gevurah is a place literally that was carved out where evil could exist so man could have free will. All right. It's not forever. It is going to collapse on itself. And this whole place of Gevurah, of the sides of the north, and it says why it says in the Bible, a lot of these verses, it says the sides of the north. It talks about how, which people understand, demonic presences or Hasatan's hordes, or people say, it's not Russia. Oh, this is what drives me crazy on the literal level. You got to get out of the literal level, because that's what makes us kill each other over the literal level. Gevurah, it's talking about a geographic location in the heavenlies. In the heavenlies, we can only be there in mental ways. But believe me, there are real angels. There are real entities that live there and have authority there and can function with their authority in other dimensions. So it's nothing to mess around with here. So in this part of the sides of the north, this is where Hasatan, now he is the God of this world. He flipped it around so that this, for all intents and purposes, he is able to influence the earth more so, per se. That is our first, that's why we're born in evil. This is why all this concepts, how we have an evil inclination. Our nature is evil continually. What they're saying is because we have a problem, okay? We're not balanced. Our north side is our first responder side, okay? That technically is supposed to totally be in subjection. It's supposed to be working completely in harmony. The north and the south has said in Gevurah with the middle pillar. All right. So a lot of what Isaiah is talking about, it's so deep and it's so interdimensional that if you don't understand that aspect of it and what the east and the west is referring to literally, geographically. Now, this is important because once you have this theology, this concept of this cube of space, all right, and it's different levels, then you get into some of the archetypes in the text, the narratives, and we can understand what they're talking about, how they're correlating or corresponding. And let's just take these three. You have the Garden of Eden, you have Mount Zion, which is also referred to as the navel of the earth, and you have Mount Sinai. And it says in one verse, it says that these three face each other, all right, which is absolutely true. If you put these things together, they do, because I'm going to show you that each one of these is in a place, they're right where they're supposed to be, and when you fold this into a cube, they face each other, okay? The best way for this thing to be, this is part of what they're saying in the new heavens and the new earth, when everything gets fixed and the thing gets righted and all the energies, all the flows, all the light, all the fluxes, all the emanations, all the information, everything comes in a proper, from the top, above, down. And these two sides, the north and the south, which is really what we're talking about with the left side and the right side, the holy Sadiq and the wicked, which will be folded up into one, okay? First of all, it says that the weight of the sin of the sinners, those who are still operating in allegiance with the north, which is where the side, which is Hasatan's sort of kingdom, which is as high up as he can go right now. They're the weight of them, the weight of their sin and their guilt and all this stuff, when all the true light is, they're just going to sink. They're just going to fall. They're just going to dissolve. They're going to have no place to hide. There's going to be no more. Everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to have the aha moment at the same time. It's like when the music stops, when the trumpet blows. Oh my gosh, let's hope you have a chair that you can get to. All right. So when it gets all set back together, and these two sides, this is what it's saying, there will be no more sun and moon, no more left and right. It'll all be folded back into one perfectly harmonious unity, a had running, back through all space and eternity, like I have, all right, forever. But back to this concept, I just want to touch on this here, because especially when you start reading the Dead Sea Scrolls and you start trying to figure out the priestly, what they're all upset about, because it is obvious that they feel usurped. They feel that the truth has been hijacked. They believe that there's like a whole rogue group out there, and there is. And this is very important to understand, but at the same time, I'm beginning to understand it is not outside the will of Yahweh, all right, because of dualism, because in this present age, there is always dualism. There is always parallelism. There's a right side and a left side operating. Choose you this day. So even if I'm not quite there yet to put it together, but I kind of understand why, let's just say the Pharisees and the rabbis and a lot of, why they took the information, kind of shut it down, locked it up, so to speak, into highly mystical Zoharic text for a certain season, as they kind of figured out how they're going to keep going forward, even though they're in total exile now, the destruction of the Second Temple. I mean, cut them some slack. All right, why they, how do I say this? I won't say not all have had an evil intent to hide the truth. This is what's called the concept keeping a fence around Torah. Because again, the two dyes of the Gentiles, there was a mission, and it didn't necessarily involve the deep secrets per se. We now live in the season at the end of the age where he said everything, where the deep secrets have to come back so we can put this thing back together again. All right. So a lot of it, if people understood dualism, it sometimes it's a necessary part of the process, and it's Yahweh's. So don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at other people. Don't be anti-Semitic in your understanding. Just understand Yahweh's ways are not our ways. Okay. So just roll with it. That's all I can say, and we'll see how it all pans out. But you have these three places: the Garden of Eden, you have Mount Zion, and then you have Mount Sinai, and they face each other. But then again, you have these archetypes of the Garden of Eden, you have Mount Zion, and then you have the temple, and you have the Temple Mount, and then you have the Holy of Holies. And in one sense, when you are going in complete progression from above, you're taking the Holy of Holies, the knowledge of the Most High, the seed, the name, the essence, everything you are of above, you're bringing it to below, all right? And on the way, some of these very archetypal places have significance. The Garden of Eden. Let's just start there. Okay. So first of all, and that's the first thing we're told, that Yahweh plants a garden in Eden. Well, first of all, Eden and the garden are not the same thing or the same place. That's, you gotta say. There's Eden, which was there obviously before there, because if he's going to plant a garden in Eden, Eden already had to exist. Well, Eden is what I said below, the upper parts, Keter, Chokmah, and Dina, which is outside of time, always existed. There's a lot of deep stuff about that, but we'll just say for all intents and purposes. So when he plants a garden, what it's talking about is this is the garden. Look at it that way. There's no way you could. This Zeron pin that includes all the 7 lower Sefirot from Hesed all the way down to Malkut, physicality, that is the garden. So he plants this, all right? And he uses Elohim, which is a whole piece of the puzzle. We can't go there. But so you have the Garden of Eden. So you have Eden comes and plants a garden, the top, in the east, so it says, in this level, and the level of, I believe it's Beria, which is the word creation. Creation, Beria, same. Okay, so that's accurate from what all our texts are telling us. So the Garden of Eden is coming down from above, and it's landing on Mount Zion. And so the garden, we're told, is the holy of holies. It's the heavenly archetype, it's the highest archetype, okay? And that is the most pure essence, the seed, so to speak, that gets planted. And then what we know is in Mount Zion, which is known as the navel of the earth, the center, what they're saying, they're bringing it right down into the middle, into Zerampin, into the middle, into this place in the east called Tiferet. And it's a place also, so now we're lowering ourselves down to earthly, to physicalities, and we start having real players in this thing, right? So you would have Mount Zion, and this is originally, I think the first thing is it's the place of the binding of Isaac, but I also believe it has earlier, something with Enoch. Shem, there's a lot more prehistory. We know that the Prince of Salem, Melchizedek, comes to Mount Zion, I believe, and has that first, Abraham meets him, and they have a ritual, an offering of bread and wine, which, okay, so a very priestly thing goes on. But then on top of Mount Zion, that's where he was told to put the city of the living El. That's finally was the resting place, was in Jerusalem. So now you have it coming down. You have Jerusalem representing now really on the earth. And then you build on the earth in this city of Jerusalem, which is a mirror image of the heavenly, okay? And in this one, you put the temple, you put the presence. This is the point. Now you make a dwelling place so I can come down from heaven to earth, literally, and dwell among you, all right? That had to be so holy. And there is so much physics in this. I mean, this is why people are saying that the ark, I mean, oh my gosh, who knows what kind of circuitry, wiring, what kind of effects, what that was capable of. Well, we know from some Bible stories. Very few people had a real handle on it. So onto Mount Zion, you superimpose, because you're really going up and down, up and down. This is Jacob's ladder. It's very linear. It becomes, Jerusalem becomes the place of the temple, which becomes the Temple Mount, which becomes then you get into all the different levels, which is another mirror image, why you have outside the city limits, the wilderness, Sinai, I'll get to that in a second. Then you have the courts of the Gentiles and the women, you have the courts of the priests, and then you go inside, you have the courts of the holy, well, you have the high priest. They just keep it so straight and linear, almost like a pipe. So if you're the high priest and you're there in the Holy of Holies and it's the Day of Atonement, and you're, oh my gosh, the electricity that must have flown down, fire from heaven must have been amazing. It would kill you if you weren't holy. Oh, goodness. So what I want to say, you have the Garden of Eden, you have Mount Zion, and then on top of Mount Zion, you have the tabernacle, the temple, the heaven, the earthly Jerusalem with its archetype of the temple, with the Holy of Holies. So now, but in another sense, you have the Garden of Eden, which is in the east, which is Tiferet, okay, which is a dimensional place, right? Then we come down to Mount Zion, the navel of the earth, which is in the west. Okay, now we're coming down, but there's another place they talk about and how these face each other like this. See these mountains? I'll get into that Enoch in the mountains, but let me just finish this point. Mount Sinai is outside of Israel. It is in the desert. Now, one of the things people have to understand about these code words, the prophets, and especially the Essenes and the Damascus document, and some of these words, the way they use the word Damascus, and they talk about the new covenant, wilderness, Damascus, the desert, all of these words really reference outside the land, outside of the temple. This is the Eretz, the other lands. This is what he's trying to say is outside of the assembly of Israel, of the places, the navel, the straight, direct stream that comes from the Most High El, because the nations get their streams, but see, they're from other gods, from other, it's so deep. I hope I can get into that little point. I don't know if I can. But what we have to understand is that Mount Sinai is deliberately put outside of the Holy Land because the people, this is so much of the storyline, the people dwell. We all dwell in the wilderness, in the desert, not in the Holy Land, not living in this Garden of Eden anymore. Where the earth planet is like a wilderness. It's a desert. It's like it yields tares and junk, and then you got to work so hard to get some good crop. So the typology, it all stays the same. So again, let me go through that. The Mount Zion is the location of the temple in Jerusalem. It's very specific. And even this whole, actually, the argument over where the Temple Mount is, it's Mount Zion. It's a temple mount. It's pretty much established. David went up to, all right, there's a city David, but he went up to the holy mountain, the top, the summit. I make this point when Enoch, and there's a one point in Enoch where he's traveling all over this dimensional multi-cube. This is what and he's seeing all these places, and a lot of Enoch is spot on when you plug in geographically where he is, what he's talking about, and all the other code words. They all are spot on and fit very neatly one with the other. The 7 mountains is the 7 Sefirot. So mountains is Sefirot. Mountain is in one level, the mountains of Yahweh, the mountains of Adonai, the mountains of the Lord are his other Sefirific, these other names he has, and Sefirific, on my body. I got hands and I got feet. They kind of do different things. I don't eat with my feet. By all intents and purposes, we just have to grow up in our understanding of this stuff, okay, and how deep it really goes. So from Jerusalem, and then we morph into this whole idea that the Aaronic priests, the sons of Zadok, and then that fits into the knowledge stream that they had, and these priests that comes from Enoch, okay, and it gets into the sons of Zadok, and then, the unrighteous, the wicked, and all these things. But, there's so much about Mount Zion, and this gets into the solar calendar. This is begin to understand what information, or what, I think it is the earlier, more accurate, and I think it is the priestly, and I think that's what we're going back to, because we're going back to a priestly society run by priests with a king, okay, in union. They work together, all right? This is the point, if you understood Israel. So let me just finish this. But this is where you have the 7-fold cycles of time, the solar calendar, the sacred blessing, prayers, and singing. This is where all the Essenes were. They were on a different calendar because they were still in sync with the heavens and with the angels and with the very early time, the way this thing cycled through that was given to Enoch. That's the stream they are following, okay? Now, and the point is, we're all trying to come into understanding. So Paul and Yeshua is very clear. As we are all coming into understanding, you do not bite and devour one another. All right, we're all, I give people the benefit of the doubt. Okay, I believe you're a believer, and I believe you're trying to do the best you can to articulate and disseminate some very, important and deep information, okay? I don't agree with everybody out there, but I understand that, it's a cut. You can turn this thing a little bit this way or that way. But the point is, in the process, you do not bite and devour one another. That is how Satan operates in his kingdom, okay? That is not how the true children of Elohim operate with each other. And that's one of the huge flags that you can use to kind of wonder where someone's root system is coming from, okay? It's very important. So we have Mount Zion, a physical place on the earth, and for what I think over 2,000 years, I can't, maybe more than that, about 2,200 years, there really was a temple in Jerusalem, between the tabernacle and temple, that really was operating on the earth, Zerampin, in a place where heaven and earth could meet, and that's a whole deep subject, but where the heavens and the earth, that his will was done on earth as it is in heaven. Mount Sinai is a place where angels and chariot wheels were revealed to the people. Now this, you get into Mount Sinai, but remember it's outside the land. Torah, in one sense, is for the wise and the unwise, the profane and the holy, the wicked and the righteous. Everybody's subjected to the same level. Oh, this gets deep, of Zerampin and Torah. You will reap what you sow, and there are standards, and they do come from heaven. That's why Enoch, he received from heaven the Torah. There are laws. Everybody, even angels have to behave in certain levels. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the story of the fallen angels. I mean, there had to be something for them to disobey, or the same thing with Hasatan. So that's another concept you have to have. In Mount Sinai, this is where Ezekiel is. This is the throne room. This is the chariot. This is the more spiritual understanding. It's a little higher up. Is where angels are revealed to the people. This is where the Torah was given, the written law, and this is the place where the heavenly law, which I had just said, which was established by Moshe. Because now there was a people group, a planting of the Lord again. Since Adam's sin, there was a new plant that would receive the Torah. That was their day. They'll receive the Torah again. They will do everything in their power to live according to its precepts, ordinances, laws, and they will reap the blessings of it. And that was given to them. All right, and that's part of the story. Now it's given to, we're in these 2 days where it's given to the Gentiles, technically the lost sheep. All that's about done with. We're coming together into one big, massive unity again. And if you're part of the refuse, if you're part of your allegiance is in the north, the sides of the north, and then which is coming down, which it says even by its own weight, it's just going to fall to the earth. I mean, they're going to have no leg to stand on. Their house of cards is coming down. All right, that's why so many times they'll say the gainsayers, the liars, the scoffers, those who speak against the truth, they're all going to come to naught. That's why we don't need to wring our hands. Yahweh is in complete control. So you have this, Mount Zion location. We have the Sinai, Mount Sinai location, and we have this progression of the Garden of Eden to Mount Zion to literally the city of Jerusalem. And this is all very intentional, because in the Garden of Eden, again, this is the heavenly archetype. This is the site of the cherubim, the flaming sword, the eternal source, the fountain, the spring, the flow, the headwaters of life. This is where Enoch went up to, and this is where he is as Metatron. There's a lot of going on in the heavenly temple, but this is where it's really important to understand how, again, these places that the prophets are describing are real, and they're in their mind, and they're explaining to you the ramifications. They're telling you who's up there in the highest heaven. You have the seraphim, the cherubim, and the ophanim that all encircle the throne. Those are totally real living being, living beasts. The elders, these are high, oh my gosh, gods. These are, his magistrates, his, who run the cosmos with him. All right, so there's a lot. But I do think this is a concept we need to stop being afraid of. Again, we need to learn this. It's like part of just learning your esoterics 101, so that you can follow with the prophets, so we can understand the end time, so we can, again, study long and hard, but just stay calm, because it's going to be fun. I always say, tell the righteous it's going to be well with them. We will, if our mind, we will immediately be transformed into the place where our consciousness lives. If you're living in the higher, you're going to be there. All right, that's the whole point of the resurrection. If you're not, you're going to kind of be like heavy and dense and left behind. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff we can clear up if we just kind of understood these archetypes, the keys, how this language is used. I didn't make any of this up. It's in the text. This is the deeper understanding that our sages, this is how Yeshua walked with. He walked in such high levels of understanding. He had power over all the forces of nature. Nothing tripped him. He could even call down higher angels to totally put Satan out of his cast right then and there. So, I mean, Oh my gosh, that's all I can say. Let's just grow up and let's inherit our crowns of righteousness later. So on that note, shalom, many blessings. I will see you again very soon.